Kang Embalo, President of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Madam President, distinguished heads of state and government, Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin by congratulating Mrs. Annalena Baerbock on her election as President of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly. I thank the outgoing President, Mr. Philemon Yang, for his service to the international community. To Secretary General Antonio Guterres, I wish to reaffirm Guinea-Bissau's full support for his tireless efforts in favor of world peace, international cooperation, multilateralism, and sustainable 80 years ago, the founders of the United Nations pledged to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. That promise, unfortunately, has not yet been fully fulfilled. Yet this commitment, undertaken by each member state upon joining the UN Charter, remains valid and continues to be honored through the dedication of every UN peacekeeper and every humanitarian worker who often make the difference between life and death in conflict zones or following natural disasters. UN agencies such as WHO, UNESCO, UNICEF, FAO, WFP, UNHCR, and UNDP, among others, provide treatment, education, vaccines, food, and protect every day millions of human beings and contribute to the fight against poverty and discrimination against women and girls all over the world. The United Nations remains relevant, especially in these times of deep global uncertainty and crisis. It continues to be the only forum where all nations, large and small, have a seat and a voice. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world confronted by multiple crises. We are witnessing what Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called polycrisis. Conflicts in Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, and other regions persist. Socioeconomic inequalities, environmental shocks, political instability, and humanitarian emergencies disproportionately affect developing countries, with the greatest impact on small island developing states. Progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals has slowed significantly or even stalled. The sovereign debt burden of poor countries is increasing, while development assistance is declining. Guinea-Bissau welcomes the UN 80 initiative, and we hope it will contribute to strengthening the organization, especially in promoting peace, international security, and the achievement of the SDGs. The Pact for the Future offers a roadmap and an action plan that must not remain on paper. Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, last July, Guinea-Bissau hosted the 15th Conference of Heads of State and Government of the Community of Portuguese-Speaking Countries, CPLP. I have taken on the presidency of the CPLP for the 2025-2027 term. The CPLP places high importance on its cooperation with the United Nations and its specialized agencies. During our term, we will continue to work with all partners and multilateral organizations toward the implementation of global commitments, especially concerning the Paris Agreement on climate change, the 3rd UN Ocean Conference, and the 4th UN Conference on Financing for Development, held last June-July in Seville. We are convinced that 2 major international meetings scheduled for November, namely COP30 in Belém, Brazil, and the 2nd World Summit for Social Development in Doha, Qatar, will serve as key platforms and opportunities to strengthen our cooperation and to advance our shared goals. Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Guinea-Bissau is scheduled to hold presidential and legislative elections on the 23rd of November this year. All necessary conditions are being put in place to ensure that these elections are held peacefully, freely, transparently, and credibly. Over the past 5 years, I have prioritized dialogue, inclusion, political stability, and the consolidation of the democratic rule of law. I am confident that these upcoming elections will reaffirm the irreversible nature of citizenship and democratic values in Guinea-Bissau. Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to conclude by saying that in an increasingly interdependent world, we need, now more than ever, a world order grounded in the principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter, in respect for international law and in peaceful coexistence. In this regard, Guinea-Bissau reiterates our call for an end to the economic, commercial, and financial embargo and other forms of restrictions imposed on Cuba. 80 years after the creation of the United Nations, the world has changed. We are no longer just the 51 countries who signed the UN Charter in 1945. Today, the United Nations is all of us, the 193 member states, plus observer states, NGOs, civil society organizations, and other actors represented in this great assembly hall. To meet the challenges of the 21st century, the UN must undertake urgent reforms, reforms that reflect today's geopolitical realities and global power balances, reforms that expand and democratize the Security Council, reforms that provide a place and a voice to the Global South, reforms that restore confidence in the multilateralism and international cooperation. The UN continues to be a unique multilateral space where dialogue is still possible, even when diplomacy and good offices fail elsewhere and in other circumstances. The legitimacy, strength, and future of the UN lie in the inclusion and full participation of all of us in deliberations and decision-making. Its core details, peace, dignity, equality, poverty eradication, cooperation, and peaceful resolution of conflicts remain alive and continue to inspire the purposes of the international community and the March of Humanity. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau, the Assembly will hear an address by His Majesty King Mosawati III, Head of the State of the Kingdom of Eswatini. I request protocol to escort His Majesty and invite him to address the Assembly.
Your Excellency, Madam President of the General Assembly, Your Majesties, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, UN Secretary General, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to address the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly under the theme, Better Together, 80 years and more for peace, development, and human rights. At the outset, we wish to assure you, Madam President, of Eswatini's unwavering support during your tenure. We also commend the UN Secretary General and the Secretariat for their steadfast leadership in navigating our world through unprecedented challenges. As we gather today, mankind is confronted with many challenges, including conflicts around the world. We must remind ourselves that when the United Nations was established in 1945, it was during a time of widespread global strife. Its founding fathers resolved that no country or people should endure suffering due to conflict. The UN Charter and structure were designed to be clear and resolute. Now is the time to ask ourselves what has gone wrong and what steps must be taken to correct these challenges and restore the UN's mission of fostering peace. The question we must ask ourselves further is, what is the UN doing to address these issues effectively? I propose that the United Nations establishes ad hoc committees to tackle global conflicts and promote peace. These committees should have equitable representation in dealing with the relative conflicts in the diverse regions of hotspots, including Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and beyond, ensuring that all affected nations have a voice. Supported by the Secretariat of the United Nations, these ad hoc committees would visit conflict zones, engage with local communities, and work towards peaceful resolutions. For instance, in Africa, the conflicts in Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, the Sahel, and the Great Lakes need the intervention of these ad hoc committees. In the Middle East, they should facilitate dialogue with all parties involved. The team could ask the Palestinians what it will take to release the hostages, given the fact that the Israelis would remain aggrieved as long as their loved ones are not with them. Similarly, the ad hoc committee should engage the Israelis to ascertain what it will also take for them to stop the bombardment, to avoid loss of more innocent lives, widespread destruction of property, and a growing refugee crisis. By engaging directly with the affected communities, these communities could help broker solutions that address the concerns of all sides to reduce tensions, suffering, and foster stability. In the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, these ad hoc committees could mediate discussions to identify pathways to peace. Their role would be to engage in meaningful dialogue and report back to the United Nations with actionable recommendations on what it would take to end the war. In Eswatini, we encourage that yield positive outcomes proving that dialogue is the cornerstone in nation building. We thank those countries already making means in finding solutions. This suggested approach is not meant to undermine their efforts, but it would complement them as they are already working towards peaceful resolutions. We must avoid actions that could escalate tensions further and instead focus on saving innocent lives. Millions of lives have already been lost during the COVID-19 pandemic. We therefore cannot afford to lose any more to conflict. The UN must now focus on supporting the building of economies of the world to address issues of poverty and the global financial crisis which we experienced after the COVID-19 pandemic. By investing in these areas, we can create conditions for lasting peace. We therefore need one another in building and supporting our development initiatives in our respective countries. The time for action is now. The UN was established in pursuit of international law and peace, and its mandate dates back decades. In 2025 and onwards, we must renew our commitment to this mission by forming these ad hoc committees and making informed, inclusive decisions. We can work towards a world where peace prevails and no nation or people suffer needlessly. We have been calling for the restructuring of the United Nations as a body representing all member states. It must lead with decisions that are inclusive and widely respected, as no one will question the process taken. These reforms should be fully representative of all countries through the regions of the world in the Security Council to create an all-inclusive structure. Without such reform, the legitimacy and effectiveness of this body will remain incomplete. We have been encouraged to witness UN high-level meetings prior to the General Assembly being held to address various issues. These include the Seville and Awaza declarations on financing for development and socio-economic challenges faced by landlocked countries. We are aware that for any growth to take place, nations must have enough resources to achieve sustainable development goals. As we convene to advance international cooperation and to uphold human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, we are reminded that our work is both urgent and indispensable. The theme Better Together underscores the imperative of delivering on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and reinvigorating global cooperation. Eswatini continues to believe that working together remains our most powerful tool for addressing global challenges that transcend borders. The world stands at a critical juncture in pursuit of Agenda 2030. With only 5 years remaining, we must face the reality that progress on the SDG is far off track. This is a sobering reminder that our collective efforts must be redoubled, and that international solidarity, cooperation, and shared responsibility are more urgent than ever before. Through my national call to all Eswatini, to all Emaswati of Ngwe, for a greater sense of agency in the pursuit of sustainable development, the Kingdom has made important strides in advancing Agenda 2030, particularly in the areas of the economy in various sectors, health, education, and gender equality, to mention a few. Furthermore, the country's literacy rates have improved, reflecting our investments in education, while the nation continues to be empowered through targeted programs that strengthen their role in our society and economy. These achievements demonstrate what is possible when determination and partnership come together. While we have witnessed the GDP growth of our economy, we remain with a number of challenges to address, and we count on the UN for support to become one of the advanced economies of the world. We have implemented initiatives to grow our economy and attract new investments by opening trade opportunities with other countries that give access to regional and international markets. Your Excellencies, the global economy remains fragile. Persistent inflation resulting in rising food and energy prices, as well as tightening financial conditions, have eroded fiscal space for many developing nations. Across sub-Saharan Africa, countries spend on average 12% of government revenues on debt servicing, diverting resources urgently needed for social cohesion programs. Eswatini also advocates for trade facilitation and economic diversification, simplifying customs procedures, reducing regulatory barriers, and enabling greater participation in regional and global value chains. In this regard, the African Continental Free Trade Area has the potential to boost intra-Africa trade by up to 52%, drive industrialization, and create millions of jobs. For countries like Eswatini, the AfTA offers more than market access. It provides a pathway to overcome geographic constraints through regional integration, cooperation, and efficient trade corridors. In an increasingly connected world, the Kingdom of Eswatini is actively striving for digital transformation as a catalyst for sustainable development. Eswatini is open for business in technology and looks forward to partnering and sharing experiences with other developed countries in advancing our technologies. Eswatini is proud of the significant progress achieved under Sustainable Development Goal 3. We welcome the progress made in the ratification of the Pandemic Treaty. This landmark agreement is essential for strengthening preparedness and resilience against future health emergencies, fostering effective and equitable cooperation. We remain deeply concerned about the decline in bilateral and multilateral support for global health priorities. Weakening our joint efforts threatens to erode decades of progress in this sector, as health is a global security. The Kingdom of Eswatini recognizes that the increasing frequencies and intensity of natural disasters, emergencies, and protracted crises highlight the urgent need for integrated responses that bridge humanitarian relief, long-term development, and peace building. We urgently need to strengthen disaster preparedness, build resilient communities, and integrate emergency responses with sustainable development. Eswatini, like other countries in the region, has many young and marginalized groups who face unemployment and inequality in various sectors. Ensuring empowerment, capacity building, and employment is our priority, and with the support of the UN programs, we are taking deliberate steps to provide a more enabling environment to guarantee their future. We equally recognize the rights and potential of persons with disabilities who continue to face disproportionate barriers to education, employment, and social participation so that they can fully contribute to and benefit from national development. The United Nations General Assembly Resolution 2758, adopted in 1971, did not address the issue of Taiwan's representation in the United Nations, and it does not preclude their participation in the UN system. The United Nations must seek suitable ways of including Taiwan so that she can better contribute to realizing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. In that way, this will fulfill the UN mandate to ensure that no country is left behind. Madam President, in conclusion, we are entrusted with the hopes of our people and the future of our children. Let us not leave this assembly without reaffirming our commitment to justice, peace, and sustainable progress for all. The Kingdom of Eswatini stands ready to play its part. The international community must remain united in addressing shared global challenges, from hunger and malnutrition to climate change, under the guiding spirit of better together. I thank you. May Almighty God bless us all.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the head of the state of the Kingdom of Eswatini. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency